Right here is a very good example for you. This is a mayor of Novaya Kakhovka, the territory of Ukraine that Russia stole. He swears a lot, trolling Russians saying, "Where's the money? Show me the money. F this and F that. Give me the money." And at the end, right here, he starts recording a message. You know, he becomes serious in different tone of voice. He starts recording a message congratulating the residents of Novaya Kakhovka with May 1st holiday. Again.
Ой, блядь, давай, размешу как раз.
The message.
Дорогие новокаховчане.
This is a perfect showcase of Putin's Russia. Off camera, they show their true faces. On camera, they are all sugar and spice and everything nice. It's just this crook got caught. And the rest of them, they will in the future, sooner or later. Howdy, howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Fridays. I give you Friday crazy news update, straight out of the Met circus that Russia has unfortunately become. But first things first, there is no such absurdity that could not be realized in Russia these days. Please remember that. And the news? I call them crazy news from Russia. The news of Russia that matter and that you will not find anywhere in any mainstream media. Now, let's jump straight to the news. Let me start this week's news update with something positive. As usual, the very first news, or a couple first news, I try to make it positive, okay? There are reports that during the May holidays, right now, the May holidays in Russia from May 1st through May 9th, so that during the May holidays in Moscow, the authorities have forced hundreds of state employees to patrol the city streets around the clock, 24/7. They are on the lookouts for Ukrainian drones. Employees of various state organizations, federal organizations, and organizations subordinate to the mayor of Moscow's office have already been briefed. They have been divided into groups, and overtime schedules have been drawn up. The observers have one goal: to monitor and report any flying objects on approach to Moscow and monitor, the skies over the capital of Russia. All state employees involved in the May holidays patrols were threatened with getting fired in case they refuse. The activities are under strict control. One of the conditions is to regularly make selfies and send them to the management during the patrol to prove for people, that being on duty. During the briefing, people were openly told that they also will be checked using city's camera system. The photos that the state employees will send to the curators, the managers, will be sent through a special program of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the federal police, called Parsiv. That Moscow's surveillance system, the famous one, the expensive one, the state-of-the-art one. That's another good example of Putin's Russia. People are forced to survey the skies above them, and they are under surveillance by the big brother. Double surveillance. But how is that positive news? Well, walking and being outdoors is in general good for you. Moscow had a record snowfall today, May 2nd, up to 15 centimeters of snow, like 5 to 6 inches on the ground. And the temperature is near freezing right now, 2 degrees Celsius. But hey, it's good for Russians. They are tough. Being outdoors, looking at the skies, enjoying the scenery in the middle of the night. Welcome to Russia. Another piece of news is also very positive. The residents of Sudzha, that's the city that was occupied by the Ukrainian armed forces for 7 months until recently, received bills for garbage collection in March. That's when the Sudzha was still occupied. Here's the proof right here. It's one of the bills. It turns out that the garbage collection company was also working during the fighting that took place to move the Ukrainians back to Ukraine. Those folks should have been sent to the front line, the brave communal workers. They should have been sent to free Sudzha to fight alongside the soldier, since they were already able to clean up the garbage right in front of the noses of the Ukrainians that were stationed in Sudzha, okay? The communal workers were in Sudzha anyway, according to the bill that is right here, right here. They were doing all the collection of garbage. And that's another example of Putin's Russia. I just wonder how Sudzha residents are taking these bills, okay? Are they gonna pay them or not? I personally would be a little bit upset. I wouldn't pay it. But hey, that's me. What do I know? I'm not usual Russian, as I said. Another piece of news shows how Putin's Russia works. I have plenty of those today. And they keep coming. So this piece of news shows the current state of the law in the society, or the level of disregard of the law. I think that's the right word to say. I want you to check this out. A deputy in Chita, a city in the Russian province, was taking his driver's license away for drunk driving. He was caught red-handed. And, he went to court. Obviously, he was caught. He was that young fella right there. That's very, a brilliant fella, really. Very young deputy, okay? So, he's young. He was driving drunk, caught, sent to court. And the judge took his driver's license away, okay? And then the reporters were filming how that happened. This text right here, that came from the local news in the city of Chita. It says the court took away the license of this fellow one more time. I'm not sure it was his first offense or repeated offense, so it's not clear, okay? But anyway, at least he was caught once. So the judge read the verdict, taking away his driver's license right here. And then he left the building, said, okay, And then he gets into his car, and he drives away right there. Caught red-handed again. But he's a deputy, He's a deputy, and he's still driving. Driver's license or no driver's license. Hey, deputies are busy in Russia, especially young ones. They gotta go. They gotta move fast. And I'm sure that drinking is just a little bit of doping to get the energy level up, All right. Another piece of news shows how Russia works, and it's pretty hilarious, I'd say. All right, I'll try not to laugh. Oh boy. Drone jammers. Do you know what drone jammers are? That's electronic systems. Okay, the complicated, sophisticated electronic systems, a part of electronic warfare. So drone jammers were purchased in China for the Russian National Guard, Rosguardia. They turned out to be non-working dummies. Russia's National Guard, Rosguardia, received a large batch of electronic warfare called burnout systems from China. And those systems turned out to be dummies, did not perform the functions of countering drones. The total amount of supplies of non-working equipment exceeded 820 million rubles, an equivalent of $100 million, a little more. According to Russian newspaper Izvestia, contracts for the purchase of drone detection and suppression systems from China were concluded in November of 2023 by Rosguardia. You know, there were certain people, certain officials, officers, high-ranked officers in Rosguardia that signed the contracts. However, after they were received and sent to the front line in Ukraine, it was found that the systems did not meet the stated technical characteristics. The Chinese Scorcher systems turned out to be blind. They simply didn't see the drones because they didn't have any electronic equipment inside. They turned out to be dummies. Dummies. $10 million. That's a lot of money. Imagine what a Rosguardia colonel can do with that kind of money. $10 million. Certainly buy a green card, USA, the US green card, move to Miami, buy a house, some stock, deposit some into a bank, buy some US government bond. Well, the biggest expense, of course, is the green card itself. It's called Golden Visa, and it was introduced a couple months ago. There are over 1,000 golden visas were sold to quite a few Russians, and perhaps, most likely, that colonel who signed the contract received dummies. You know, he took $10 million and bought himself a green card, golden visa to the USA, and now enjoying the good life. The USA is open for them Rosguardia officers. Just need $5 million, but that's okay. That's just one or two state contracts away, okay? So it's open for crooks, but closed for the decent people. And the next news is, actually, I don't really know how to name this thing, okay? A very odd thing. When I was thinking about how to name it, I had this old memory popped up in my head. There was a book a long time ago when I was married for the first time. It was a hit at the stores, and it's called "Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus." Okay, and that a psychologist was explaining how to get along with for spouses. Okay, and it was just basically saying that men and women are made to think differently of the same things, and he was explaining things. Okay, and then so I feel like the next news is people, like human beings in the world. They're from Earth. They're Earthlings. Us, myself included, we're Earthlings. We live on this Earth. But the Russians, they're from Venus. They're Venusians. Russians will be imprisoned if their bank cards end up in hands of fraudsters. Not fraudsters, but the lawful owners of cards, of bank accounts. If somehow fraudsters take their card, use it to withdraw money, Russians will be punished. The decent people, that didn't commit any crime. The government of Russian Federation has submitted a bill to the parliament, providing for the introduction of criminal liability for individuals whose cards end up in the hands of fraudsters, crooks. The bill is posted on the electronic database of the lower house of parliament. It is proposed to impose a fine up to 300,000 rubles, $3,000, or imprisonment for up to 3 years in prison. And this is how they work. Stepping stones. Some call it boiling the frog. They never make huge steps, big steps. They always take small steps, but consistently, constantly, and take it all the time. Some people call it boiling the frog. And I just told you one of the stones. That's how they take away freedoms from Russian people, stone by stone, step by step. And why do I think that Russians are not from Earth? Because it seems like they don't care. It concerns them directly. You see, the government is on the way to complete total control of their lives, online, offline, everywhere. And that's just one of the steps on that road. And that information is free and open, and I give Russian government the credit. It's not hiding it. It's out there. It's for everyone to see. Hey, I am sitting outside Russia. But Russian people seem like they just could care less. It seems like they don't care about their lives, and that's why I think they're from Venus. Okay, now it gets even more interesting. This week is beyond crazy. Let's move to demons. Russian Orthodox Church accuses talented children of being possessed by demons. Sigumen Gavril of the Okay, this is Sigumen Gavril of Volam Monastery. Please meet this excellent fellow. Now, he is an official, and he's a high rank in Russian church, and he claims that he is sure that the gifted children are actually possessed by evil spirits, demons, and their talents are demonic gifts. And the parents, they love the talents of their children, but they're not from God, he says. They're from demons. These children are called, interesting word, indigo children. Indigo is one of the tones of the blue. And now Sigumen gives an example. He tells about a 6-year-old girl who showed him her poem. And the poem was so good that Gabriel, in his opinion, thinks that she could not have written that poem on her own, and it was written by a being of the higher order, a demon. Существо высшего порядка, демон. A being of the higher order, a demon, wrote a poem that the girl showed Sigumen. I pray every day, and a few times a week I finish live streams with prayer, and I invite everyone to pray along with me. And you know what? As a part of my prayer, every single day I pray that God assembles his strongest angels with sharpest swords and has Saint Michael to lead that heavenly army and send it to the earth to get rid of the demons who have hijacked my country, Russia, who we know by their names and by their faces. Dear God, please do so. Well, you're not going to believe, but there are more demonic news in Russia this week. Demonic forces poisoned Donald Trump, American president, in St. Peter's Cathedral when arrived, the funeral of the Pope. No, this is not a news from, it's not a fake. It's not a AI generated news. No. This is how pro-Putin political scientist Sergei Markov reacted to the talks between Zelensky and Trump in the Vatican. Yes, right here. Remember? They met. Well, I quote, "There was a meeting for only 15 minutes and such a transformation of Trump. The demonic black forces of Zelensky and Macron, French president, poisoned Donald Trump in St. Peter's Cathedral and forced him to quarrel with his political ally, Putin," said Sergei Markov. I unquote. He really said that. I don't know how to comment it, but this is another demonic news for you. Dear Lord, please get rid of the demons who have hijacked my country, who we know by their names and by their faces. Thank you, amen. Speaking of Russia's transformation, federal police will have the right to block Russian bank accounts without court orders. The government has submitted a bill to the parliament that expands the powers of investigators and law enforcement. They may be allowed to temporarily suspend operations with money and accounts without a court order in case of urgency, if it's needed, if it's urgent. The relevant bill has been published in a database of the lower house of parliament. Another information that is open, widely available to all Russians. Do you know how they sometimes call the parliament? The crazy printer. And this is another example of a stepping stone on the way to a complete totalitarianism. It's sad. Before moving to the next news, I would like to take this opportunity and thank you. Those of you who bought me coffees at buymeacoffee.com, supported through Patreon and PayPal, your support shows me that you value my work highly. Just know that it inspires me and gives me energy to move forward. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting, liking, sending me good words, and sending me your love. The next piece of news is, I call it this type of news. I call it open your eyes and look for yourself type of news. I am asked that, that how come Russia is still functioning? Now, I've been talking about Russian economy demising, declining, and living standard dropping a big deal. But a lot of people say, Konstantin, how come? You talk of that and other YouTubers and news, and we see that there is still food in Russian stores, food stores. There are still people working, getting paid, and the country is still functioning. Well, I'm going to give you a story of Kusville. Kusville is a big company. It sells organic food. It's equivalent of Trader Joe in the United States. And this company, it was the fastest growing company in Russia not too long ago. Friends, I tell you more. I was a customer of this company, Vkusvil, when I was living in Russia. My wife shopped there a lot. She's concerned about what we eat, and it was good food. You know, a little more expensive than you could find in regular stores. Um, this company only grew before the war. It was growing fast. It showed tremendous growth. One of the fastest growing food store chains in Russia. Over 2,000 stores in December 2024, and I think they were founded in 2012. So it's a young company. And imagine that in about a decade, 2,000 stores. Well, not any longer. From January to March 2025, the chain closed 10.5% of its stores, over 200 stores, which became a record among major food retailers of all time. Why is it so? Why did it happen? The sales are down. Very simple answer. People switch from expensive organic food to cheaper non-organic alternatives. They don't earn that much. Everything is becoming much more expensive, and they want to save money. Vkusvil officially explained, closing the store and laying off people by thousands by the stores becoming unprofitable. Lower margins, lower sales. And if you want to see the demise of Russia, look at Vkusvil. Just open your eyes and look for yourself, and you'll see it. The next news is funny. Okay, check this out. A cunning but forgetful executive of the Rosseti branch, it's a state-owned company, threw a bribe over the fence when the federal police knocked on his door. He forgot about his own surveillance camera installed in his own house. When police came to Alexei Sychov, and I'll show you that footage again, this fella right there, Alexei Sychov, and he didn't open the door, so he grabbed the cash bribe that he had, and he threw the bribe. He tried to get rid of it. He threw it over the fence, and you will see that right now. He runs. Oh, he throws cash over the fence, and he rushes back. Oops. Now, who's this guy? Just out of curiosity, Alexei Sychov is a former deputy head of capital construction of Rosseti Moscow province office. Rosseti is the state-owned company that owns entire electricity high voltage lines in Russia. Energy industry consists of generation of electrical energy and distribution. So Rosseti is the state-owned company that owns 100% of distribution. So, and this fella was in charge of capital construction in one of the major offices. And of course, he was taking bribes. And this is how he tried to get rid of his bribe. Sychov ran out into the courtyard of the house, threw the money out, but he forgot that everything was being recorded onto his own surveillance camera. The money was found, and the video became another proof of his guilt. Funny. I find it pretty funny. But the next piece of news is actually creepy. Out of check this out. Robots. This isn't a fake video generated by artificial intelligence. This is Oleg Berkovich, the deputy governor of Nizhny Novgorod province, and he's sitting among many people and recalling his memories, remembering his memories of his dog that had died, while robotic dogs roam around him. And he's telling everyone about how wonderful his dog was. And this goes on and on and on. He speaks and the robots walk around. And actually, they're doing a pretty good job, But the whole scene is creepy. It looks like a scene from a Black Mirror Netflix series. The robots actually are made in China, by the way. Of course. Certainly not in Russia. The only thing they can get in Russia is to import drone suppression systems that are only boxes with no electronics inside. That's the maximum that Russia can get. By the way, there will be many more news like this. If you want to keep up with other breaking news from Russia, consider becoming patron of Inside Russia, because every single day I carefully select and post 9 news that I find important that will keep you informed on everything you wanted to know about Russia but didn't know where to ask. Now you know. I'm going to place the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Consider becoming patron of Inside Russia. Get access to the news that matter. Now, the next block of news is not peaceful. The peace talks between the USA, Russia, and Ukraine have fallen through. It was announced recently, within the last couple of days, that the United States is pulling out of the peace talks, and that's it. This is it. This is it. The end. Well, it was expected. I talked of it a few times here on this channel and quite some time ago. I predicted that there will be no peace deal, at least how Donald Trump wanted it, and in near future. To me, it's obvious that Putin doesn't want to end the war. The war means total control of the society. Peace means Putin will be facing uncertainty, questions, and possible threats from the power groups inside Russian government. And obviously, this is the biggest news that is being discussed right now. And I will talk more about it in the upcoming live streams. There have been a few news that just recently came out, following up this big news of the end of the peace talks. And I'll start with this. The European Union and the United States have agreed to coordinate crushing sanctions against Moscow for disrupting peace talks. Well, there's no question about that. Russia is the country that has disrupted peace talks. Although in Russia they think it's the demons, the demonic forces that Zelensky somehow brought to Donald Trump while they were meeting in the St. Pete's Cathedral. But in reality, we all understand that that's Russia's doing. The European Union is developing the next 17th package of sanctions against Russia and coordinating the the sanctions, the new restrictions with the US authorities. This was stated by the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot following a meeting with the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Washington yesterday, Thursday. I quote the French minister: "We, the Europeans, will support this American initiative with the 17th package of sanctions, and I promised Senator Lindsey Graham that we will try to coordinate these two packages of sanctions, both in substance and in time, unquote. Couple things I noticed. First of all, what a change from Marco Rubio, from Lindsey Graham, praising Russia's attempts to negotiate and things like that, supporting Donald Trump. And now they just like that turn around and say, let's crush Russia with sanctions. Wow, what a change. And the second, just a couple weeks ago, both the United States and European Union were kind of going head to head to each other, and now they're friends again. And they're coordinating the sanctions on the spot, just like that, on a turn of a dime, in 5 minutes, no problem. It's going to be coordinated both in substance and in time. Wow. We certainly do live in a very turbulent and dynamic time. The next piece of news comes from the Russian elites. Oh, that's interesting. That just came out. This news came from the USA, actually. The Washington Post has insiders in Russia, and it got the news. Very interesting again. Zelensky and Trump's rare earth deal that the USA and Ukraine signed scared Russian elites. An agreement on the development of rare earth, which the United States of America and Ukraine signed after 2 months of intense negotiations, is sparking nervousness in Moscow. No kidding. According to the Washington Post, representatives of the Russian elites, oligarchs, high officials, their families, their connections, business partners, and the politicians, of course, with Vladimir Putin. But I don't think that's the case with Vladimir Putin. He's not a part of this news. His servants, those who are lower than him, they are afraid of this new deal, this new relationship that starts growing between Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump, and they believe that the Kremlin may miss the chance to conclude a peace deal with Ukraine on favorable terms. Pressure is growing on President Vladimir Putin to at least appear ready to make concessions, a Russian official told Washington Post on condition of anonymity. Otherwise, Russia faces a new package of the U.S. sanctions, the package number 17, which was prepared by the Senator Lindsey Graham and is being coordinated with the European Union. There will be serious blows as the budget deficit is already growing and the situation in the economy is not too great. Concerns about the state of the economy are playing an increasingly important role. It is impossible to build an economy based solely on the mobilization model and militarization model, he says. Well, that's what he thinks. I think otherwise. I think that Vladimir Putin will be attempting to do so. How he succeeds, we'll find out. What I like about this news is that there is certainly someone in the Russian elites, in the higher-ups, in the circles next to Putin, who is asking questions. And I think it's just not one person, not only one source of the Washington Post, but there are groups, and there are a lot of people asking the same question. What are we going to do next? We're out of money. Things are really bad. Russian economy is declining. It is in the crisis, full-blown crisis. Where are we going to get the money? And by the way, this is what I'm going to be talking about in details tomorrow in a live stream on Saturday, May 3rd. So please tune in and hear me speak and then discuss with me where Russia is going to get money. And not just for the war, but basically to live. It's completely out of money. And this is exactly what this official, the source of Washington Post, is concerned about. What are we going to do? And then guess what? Economic growth rates in Russia economic growth rate in Russia is already slowing down, according to the officials, the government of Russian Federation. In the first quarter of 2025, GDP added only 1.7% after 4.5% a quarter earlier. And we're talking about the military-industrial complex. After the decline in oil prices, the GDP has started declining faster. Now, the Ministry of Finance predicts that this huge hit that is being taken by Russia because of lower oil prices, it's going to cost the budget, Russian federal budget, 20% more. In other words, the deficit will be at least 20% more. Now the Ministry of Finance predicts that the budget deficit will be the highest since the pandemic, 3.8 trillion rubles instead of original plan of 1.2 trillion rubles. In my opinion, the budget deficit will be much higher than 3.8 trillion rubles. It's going to be at least double that, but we'll see at the end of the year. Again, I will speak details of Russian economy current situation. Not good, I'm hinting you. Please come and check what I'm going to say tomorrow. Thank you. The next piece of news is also about, comes from European Union. The EU confiscates 3 billion euros of frozen funds from Russian oligarchs and companies and compensates its investors for losses in Russia. According to the agency called Reuters, the confiscated funds will be distributed among Western companies and citizens who last year had a similar confiscation of billions of euros frozen in Russia. Okay, so it's basically an exchange of confiscation. The assets of the Central Bank of Russian Federation frozen in Europe, about 200 billion euros, will remain untouched. Instead, European authorities plan to use part of 10 billion euros in cash and securities of Russian companies and citizens sanctioned after 2022. We're talking about assets that have been frozen in Euroclear depository. Okay, the Belgian authorities, whose jurisdiction the company is located, gave the go-ahead for the use of Russian funds in March, and in April, Euroclear itself announced payments. At this point, it remains unclear who will receive money and whose money will be confiscated, but we will find out soon enough. The Kremlin is demanding the return of the frozen assets of 200 billion euros from the EU back to Russia. Okay, oh well. We'll see what happens. Before we move to the last news, I'd like to ask you a favor. Let me know what you think of this news selection down below in the comments. Do you like them? Perhaps a news that you didn't like, perhaps something you liked more than other news. Please let me know. The feedback is incredibly important. And the last news is unbelievable. Chinese and North Korean soldiers are marching in Moscow. Well, it started with the North Koreans, and let me tell you a story. The North Koreans were invited to fight alongside Russians in Kursk province, and you know the story. It happened about 7 months ago, and most North Koreans were killed, and Putin was forced to beg for people from Kim In diplomatic terms, it's called kissing someone's boot. So Putin had to kiss Kim's boot. And, the Koreans didn't help much, but an agreement was signed and they were brought to Russia. At first, Russians, for a long time, Russians were denying North Koreans were fighting on Russian territory. And for the first time, the Ministry of Defense admitted that the North Koreans were fighting, and it showed footage of soldiers from North Korea and how they were trained. Check this out. Here you see a Russian instructor showing the North Koreans how to throw a grenade, how to fight. Now, please note that this footage has been released by TASS, Russia's largest propaganda information agency. So this is official. The North Koreans scored high marks from Vladimir Putin. He officially praised them. And they will participate in a V-Day parade that's going to happen in 1 week. To me, it's a shame. As a Russian citizen, I will tell you that not in my worst dreams I could see anything like that. It's a shame. And then it got even better or worse. Out of the blue, the Chinese soldiers dropped to Moscow. And I want to check this out. And this is, to me, the biggest news of the week. Now, this is official information. And it's right in the middle of Moscow, right next to the Kremlin. Right next to a large shopping mall called GUM. And the information was distributed by a Russian newspaper called Argumenты и Факты. And people were just uploading their, films that they made. Russians are applauding and screaming when they see the Chinese soldiers. I'm sure that Xi Jinping, he was sitting there smiling. Oh, he's loving it. He's absolutely loving it. The Chinese soldiers officially invited to take a part in a parade in the Red Square in Moscow. The Chinese soldiers, the courageous, tall, wonderful Chinese soldiers marching through Moscow, and the Russians are just screaming on top of their lungs, applauding them. What is that? What the hell is that? Putin has been saying a lot in the last 3 years of Russia's sovereignty. That is the most precious thing, and he's been talking about how the evil West has been trying to take away Russia's sovereignty. Well, look again. I want to show you one more time. This is how Vladimir Putin has destroyed Russia's sovereignty, right there. He has invited the North Koreans to fight in Russia. He signed an unbelievably crazy military treaty with the North Koreans. And he has invited the Chinese to show off their military might. to Russia, to the Red Square, for the entire Russia to see. Unthinkable just 8 years ago. I don't know, 4 years ago. It's a reality now. And it is a very sad sight of Russia turning into a failure state. I guess Russians are... They have to... That better get used to the Chinese soldiers and the North Korean soldiers marching in Russia. It's going to start for the Chinese with this Victory Day parade in the middle of Moscow in the Red Square on May 9th, but it's not going to end there. This is just the beginning. And for the North Koreans, it has already started. Russians, that better be prepared. That better get used to seeing those flags in the capital and in other cities. That better get used to the language, to the, the hearing that very different language. That's what Vladimir Putin has done to the country. I don't have anything else to add. Carthago delenda est. I'll see you soon.